I actually like that intro music and music like that. Some of our intro music's not any good. But anyway, the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone ESPN, is brought to you by our friends at Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. So before you go to Dancing Rabbit Golf Club and you play the Azaleas or the Oaks, you have to go to Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. Take your golf game to another level with their amazing selection of, obviously, golf clubs, irons, putters, drivers, woods, golf balls, and golf accessories at Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. Football is here, and that's a good thing. We welcome in Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. Steve joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line, and this is 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Steve, will you watch college football tonight?
Yeah. Well, first off, I'm a Gators fan, so I will watch the Florida-Utah game, and I try to sneak as much college football in as I can and try to convince my kids that family time on my off days on Saturdays we'll be watching college football. Doesn't always work, but we'll try.
I didn't realize you were a Gator. Maybe you had told me that earlier.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm a fake Gator because I'm from New England, and I just kind of liked Danny Werfel back in the 90s and jumped on the bandwagon at that point, so... Northeast Gator.
I
didn't go there or anything.
Okay. I knew you played for the San Francisco Giants AAA organization.
Right.
And, okay. But I didn't know about the Gator. Did you watch Swamp Kings?
I did. Yeah, I watched it last week. It was, pretty nice little fluff piece for Urban Meyer there.
Did you think it was a fluff piece for both Urban and Tebow, or just Urban?
I think every time you talk about Tebow, it's a fluff piece because he was awesome, right? I mean, there's nothing bad to say about Tebow except for his NFL career. But I thought it was a fluff piece more for Urban, get him rehabilitated, change the image, and all that stuff. It only really talked about Florida's rise to 2 national titles in 4 years. That was the gist of the story.
I was still entertained, though. Were you?
Oh, absolutely. It was fun. It was great, nostalgic, throwback. I mean, those 08, 09 teams, especially in Florida, were just loaded and, fun to watch and everything. So, yeah, I enjoyed it. It was just funny that was what the focus was. And the four-part documentary was all Urban and what he did for Florida and all that. Man,
people don't like Urban Meyer, It's unbelievable to be I know we kind of pick and choose in sports, heck, in life, but Urban is he's disliked by college football fans and NFL fans. I mean, that guy he really can't find a spot where people celebrate him.
Well, he's trying. If everybody watches the documentary, you'll feel better for him. So
that's true.
I think that was the point.
All right, let's jump in real quick. Do you want to call it tonight? We've got a lot of and you've been heavy NFL. Utah, Cam Rising's coming off a torn ACL from the Penn State Rose Bowl last year. Florida's still a work in progress with Billy Napier. They're starting a transfer quarterback, but their running back duo is really good. Utah is basically the only team out west that plays like the SEC, kind of rough and rugged, smash mouth football under Whittingham. Are you going to call it? Do you 4.5 points? You like your Gators? You like Utah?
I'll say Florida pulls the upset. I don't feel great about their season right now. It's going to be interesting for Napier because I don't know that they're going to have a good year, but he's got that great recruiting class locked in for next year, so it might need some patience at Florida. But I'll say Graham Mertz surprises tonight. And Florida pulls the upset, even though it's really tough to win in Utah.
Yeah, they haven't lost a home game since November 21st, 2020. Yeah. You're exactly right. Okay, that's fair enough. Let's go to – and, look, y'all got to give Napier time. You can't keep going through coaches. I agree with you on – I think Napier's a good coach, and I agree with you on the recruiting class too. Let's start with the NFC. Who is in the best position? All right, the Philadelphia Eagles are the number one team in power ranking. Or I think they would be your number one team. They're mine.
Yep.
And they got arguably the best GM, the best offensive line, and a bunch of other really good pieces. So who is in the best position to take them down this year, Steve?
Well, I think the Cowboys should be right up there with the Eagles. The Niners, of course, who made the NFC Championship to face the Eagles last year. I mean, I think both of those teams from a roster building standpoint are in a similar spot. You know, I've mentioned a couple times, I think the Cowboys going into last year had a couple holes that I thought ended up coming back to bite them, you know, the wide receiver depth, the cornerback depth. And they've shored those up this offseason with Brandon Cooks and Stephon Gilmore. So I like some of those veteran moves that the Cowboys have made. So I think they'll compete with the Eagles. I don't think it's a cakewalk for Philadelphia through the East. And, you know, the Niners, of course, we think they'll be good. Everybody thinks that they'll be good, and they've got the star power. It's just a matter of Brock Purdy, I think, keeping them afloat and not regressing like he did at Iowa State, because Purdy did kind of regress at Iowa State. He had a really good freshman year and then got a little bit worse sophomore, junior, senior year. So I think those are the two teams. I'm not on an island with that, but I think, yeah, the Cowboys should be right there in the mix with the Eagles battling for the East.
Okay, so you just hit on something. If pretty much everybody that Kyle Shanahan has coached gets better at the quarterback position, I don't know what, you know, Brock Purdy's ceiling is. Well, like you said, we'll see how that looks, but they're so well run all around him that it may continue to work. What did you make of the Trey Lance trade? And was it all about the Cowboys did something, and anything they do, people lead with, whether it's Good Morning Football, Pro Football Focus, or whoever? Because I thought it was much to do about nothing, but because it's the Cowboys, people went crazy. Your thoughts?
Yes, it's because it was the Cowboys. It's ridiculous, the number of streaming TV shows, the yelling shows that I saw clips of. You know, what does this mean for Dak? I mean, it means Dak has a different backup. You know, that's what it means. It means Cooper Rush has a little competition as the backup. I mean, they traded for the third-string quarterback on the Niners, who was sitting behind Sam Darnold on the depth chart. It has nothing to do with Dak Prescott. It has nothing to do with the future for the Cowboys. It's just the Cowboys do have smart people working for them. They've made a few changes this offseason to their analytics department. And it was an opportunity to buy low on a quarterback who went number 3 overall, who hasn't had a ton of reps at all in his life, dating back to when he played for North Dakota State in the FCS. So it was a buy low on a guy that could still be good and just hasn't had time to develop. That's a smart move. It's not anything dramatic. It's just take shots on quarterbacks. Why wouldn't you? So that's all it was.
Okay. Can you expand on what you just said, that the Cowboys made some changes in their analytics department and what that could mean for them in a league where people are trying to find an edge by a fingernail?
Yeah, I just know they brought in a guy named John Park, who used to be with the Colts and was really heavy in their game day staff and their scouting department, and a couple other people behind the scenes that they've hired. I'm not saying it's like the Cowboys already have some really smart people over there. Again, behind the scenes, the analytically inclined people. But they just added a little bit more to the mix this offseason. There was actually a lot of turnover in analytics departments, transactions this offseason around the NFL. So, again, I don't know that you're going to see anything completely drastic, but like I said, they've got smart people in the building, and when you lean into the smart people in the building, it does help to find some edges on the field and scouting and the draft, whatever it might be. And I think, Dallas is continuing to move in the right direction there.
Okay, my friend Dave Bartu, who you know of, and y'all are all nerdy and into analytics, and I love it. He's run the numbers on all 168 offensive coordinators since 2000 in the NFL. And he did a podcast on where Mike McCarthy fell, who is the Dallas Cowboys head coach, but also now the play caller, now that Kellen Moore is with the Chargers. And he said that McCarthy is better than people think, that over 18 seasons of calling plays for the Saints, 49ers, and Packers, that McCarthy came in at number 11 out of 168 offensive coordinators. What is your reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the methodology, so it's tough to comment on it directly. I think it's, again, Dave seems like a smart guy and would account for all this stuff. I think it's always difficult to account for the quarterback's role in just offensive coordinator analysis, right? Josh McDaniels probably looked like a really good offensive coordinator when Tom Brady was there, and then not as good when he had, Mac Jones, Cam Newton, Derek Carr. It just wasn't as good. But it's not terribly surprising. I think we live in a world where the last thing you saw is what you think is truth. And again, the last thing we saw with Mike McCarthy calling plays was Aaron Rodgers was out of sync, not working within the system, maybe didn't have enough within the system to operate, maybe too many isolation routes. Like, you can get into the X's and O's and say, here are the mistakes Mike McCarthy made. Maybe he didn't evolve his offense enough in year 18, right? Those are the last things that we saw. So that might be the perception. But for Mike McCarthy to get that many years calling plays, to get a head coaching job after being, an offensive play caller, he had to have been good. And I think he was good. He had Aaron Rodgers, win a Super Bowl and win MVPs with him calling plays. So I don't think it's crazy. No. At the same time, we just have to recognize the last thing that we saw with McCarthy that had been falling apart a little bit. So was that just him and Rodgers just at the end of their time? Were the players not as good? Did McCarthy not evolve? To me, those are the questions that I think we're going to get answered early in the season here with McCarthy calling plays. But yeah, overall, not surprised that he ranked well there because, yeah, he did have a lot of good offenses.
Fair enough. Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. You and your colleagues, and I like this, love throwing the football, love pushing the ball down the field. You're not against running, but you like to throw more. Let's take Dak and the Cowboys and McCarthy and with what they have now, which is CeeDee Lamb coming into his prime, Brandon Cooks, who's a good player. If Gallup's healthy, he's right under good, I think, which is more than serviceable in the NFL. I don't know if Pollard will be healthy, but healthy he is good. And then I guess they're okay at tight end. So having said, their group of skill play, and you know what Dak can do and can't do, although I agree with you, the yelling shows only focus on what he can't do. I guess that just gives you more eyeballs and impressions, but throw that out. What kind of ratio would you like to see pass to run for somebody like the Cowboys, Steve?
I mean, it's tough to say offhand, but you definitely want to be up in the neutral situations, right? So when you take out goal line, you take out late in the game, and you're going to pass or you're going to run. The best teams last year in neutral situations would pass about 65% of the time, and that includes the Eagles. So the teams that were high up there were the Chiefs, the Bills, the Eagles, the Chargers, and I think the Bengals. Anything consistent there. They were all good.
Wow.
They all have good quarterbacks. Wow. Right? So those are the teams. And so they would pass 60 to 65% of the time. And that's like the game's tied. It's the second quarter. It's 1st and 10. That's a neutral situation. So that's what you want. It's not at the end of the day, what does the bottom line say? Because if things go well and you're up by 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, you start running the ball. That's when you start running. At the end of the day, maybe it looks more balanced, but it's when the game is neutral, as I've been saying, it's more conducive to pass the ball because the NFL's made it that way. They've made it easier to pass. They've made it more difficult to cover, and you need to tap into that. And so that's the key. We always joke a little bit at PFF. Like if you ask a coach, do you want a 5-yard run or a 7-yard pass? They might say 5-yard run. They might say, I want the 5 yards instead of the 7 on 1st and 10. Because a 5-yard run, you've got, 8 good blocks and it's beautiful and everybody executes. Whereas a 7-yard pass might just be like a little hitch route against off coverage. You know what I mean? Like coaches love that, win at the point of attack and get that 5-yard run and stay on schedule. And it's like, just take a 7-yard pass. It's right there. They play off coverage. They got 8 in the box. You just hit the one-on-one on the outside and take 7 on 1st down. So those are the types of moves I think a lot of the NFL's making. It's taking 7 on 1st and 2nd down instead of grinding it out with 3 or 4. Those are the few plays that need to flip, become passes, and then that sets up the run. Then it's 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, you spread, and that's when you run, right? So you gotta zig when the defense is zagging, and that's what it's really all about from a play calling standpoint.
I love the way you frame that up. Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Where would you rank the trio with the Philadelphia Eagles of A.J. Brown, who I think is top 5 in the league, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert in the NFC? Where would you rank that trio, Steve?
Oh, I mean, I think you'd have to put the Niners probably at number 1 with Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle, but I think the Eagles are right there. I'm telling you, like A.J. Brown, the more information you get on A.J. Brown and you see Ryan Tannehill's career, using PFF grades. Ryan Tannehill's PFF grades were in the 70s, which is good. He's a good quarterback until he gets to Tennessee, and then they're in the 90s when he's got A.J. Brown there. And then he leaves, and they're back where they were before. Same thing with Jalen Hurts. I thought Jalen Hurts has done a great job of developing, great job of improving every year. But let's be serious. His MVP candidacy matched with A.J. Brown being there in Philadelphia. That's just the truth. So I think him, and then Devontae Smith, I think if he was the only receiver on the team, you'd say, I don't know, he's kind of a low-end number 1. But if he's at the low end number 1 right now with A.J. Brown, go ahead, good luck covering that, because Devontae Smith had some games where he was just out of this world last year. So I think that 1-2 punch, and then Goddard's just really good as a receiver, as a pass catcher, and everything. So they're up near the top. I love what the Eagles have done from a team-building standpoint, including getting A.J. Brown in there while Jalen Hurts was on that rookie contract so that he could develop and, become the high-end passer that he did last year.
Okay, so as far as trios, you would have San Fran number 1 in the NFC. San Fran number 1. Lynch and Shanahan have done a good job outside of all the assets they gave away for Trey Lance. But which actually a lot of times over the last few years you've argued, do whatever, keep taking quarterbacks and so on. But let's stay on point. All right, the trio. You have San Fran number 1, the Eagles number 2 in the NFC. Who would be number 3?
Well, off the top of my head, I think the Saints and Cowboys are competing there. Am I missing somebody good? The Seahawks would probably be in the mix if Jackson Smith-Njigba is when he's healthy.
Got it.
With DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. But the Cowboys having CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks and Michael Gallup, I mean, that's really good. That's when Dak's had his best seasons, when he's had those 3 really good receivers. And I think they've got that again this year. And then the Saints, I think a lot depends on Michael Thomas just staying healthy. But if he stays healthy, Chris Olave looks like a star. I think Olave can become the 1. Michael Thomas can become the uber possession guy. And then even just a tight end like Jawan Johnson, who used to be a receiver and plays like a former receiver playing tight end. That's a really nice mix over there with the Saints as well. So I think all those teams have done a pretty nice job of getting that, 3 or 4 pass catches to keep defenses off balance.
Man, you just got Saints fans woolly because this is a Saints market, Saints-Cowboys market. All right, Steve Palazzolo.
I know my crowd.
You do. Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. With Dak and the Cowboys, I like the way you framed up Devontae Smith, a low-end number 1, which is incredible, by the way, in the NFL. Would you consider CeeDee
really
Lamb a low-end number 1?
No, I think he's a 1. I mean, he's a normal number 1. I don't think he has the same kind of impact as Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Stephon Diggs, but probably just below that. Maybe he could get up there a little bit higher, but I think he's a number 1. I think Amari Cooper throughout his career was a number 1, even though the Raiders and Cowboys both soured on him at some point. I think CeeDee's a true number 1. There were games where they would feed him 10 to 15 times, and he would produce. So that's what I look at that, and then I look at what they do, the effect that they have on the rest of the offense. You could when A.J. Brown and Tyreek Hill are out there, even if they only have 2 catches, you could feel the effect that they have on the rest of the game, opening things up and, how much defenses have to account for them. So I don't know if CeeDee Lamb is there yet, but he'll produce like one. And I think he's a number 1 wide receiver. And again, I think from a team building standpoint, what the Cowboys did, drafting CeeDee Lamb when they already had Amari Cooper, I think that's awesome. That you should continue to keep your foot on the gas when it comes to adding playmakers, because that's where games are won. They're won in the trenches, as long as the trenches are good enough, but they're really won on the perimeter, putting points on the board.
Okay. We'll leave it there. Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. And yeah, Eagles are number one. Everybody's chasing the Eagles, and you have the Cowboys, the 49ers, and it sounds like the Seahawks as potential teams that could catch the Eagles, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fun. I mean, you know how it is. We'll be 5 weeks into the season, and a couple teams will be 4-1 and 3-2. It'll look close, and I think that's reality. It'll be closer than we think throughout the year, as far as all those NFL and NFC teams and the Eagles.
All right, we'll talk next week. It'll be opening day. It'll be Broncos and Lions, right? Yeah. Cool.
Chiefs and Lions. Yep.
That's what I meant. Chiefs, obviously the Super Bowl champs.
Elway didn't win this. Elway didn't win the Super Bowl this year.
No, he didn't. He
It
didn't.
was Mahomes and the Chiefs.
All right. The Fighting Kneecap Biters from Detroit.
Yeah.
Have a great weekend, dude. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. We'll talk next week.
Steve Palazzolo on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Bundle your car and home and save with your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. Hit favorites.com, F-A-V-E, favorites.com, and get a quote in 4 minutes or less. We've had a very passionate show today because we're still hitting on tailgating food, and I've been called out on my Captain Rodney's take. In fact, my wife called me out. She said that I am wrong.
Whoa.
Really? And so it was pretty funny. And she said, you've never made a tailgate dip in your life. And it's easy and pretty good. Just saying. She's right. I've never made a tailgate dip in my life. Actually, I've never made a dip in my life.
You've never made a dip?
No. I mean,
Dude, that's like the best, like have people coming over, you don't
when do you make so I'll grill.
Oh,
Throw
okay.
a bunch of protein on the grill.
Of course.
I'll chop up stuff. I do enjoy that.
Okay.
Because, it's therapeutic. Really.
Right. Yeah, it really is.
You're sipping on a beverage, you're chopping stuff. You're actually having to think a little bit, but not too much.
Yeah.
I don't like to just sit. I'm not good at that. I may need to get better. But if I have something to do, that's good. But yeah, Wendy called me out and said, I don't think it's Wendy's favorite, but she says it's all about simple and easy when it comes to the tailgate.
For sure. She's
I don't
right.
think from what I'm gathering, I'm trying to go back and forth. I don't think she makes it quite like that one you read off.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
That one was very specific.
Yeah.
I
think there's all kinds of variations from what I'm gathering of
yeah.
Captain Rodney's dip. But she's told me that I was being judgy and that I've never made a dip in my life, period, but for the tailgate. We're live in the BankPlus Studio. Good morning. Welcome in. I'm your host, Bo Bounds. Thanks for listening to Out of Bounds on 105.9 The Zone.